Hello, everybody, and welcome to Web and Beyond Live for June 6th, 2022. I'm Ray Sidney Smith. I am president of W3 Consulting and managing director of W3C Web Services. We provide affordable web and WordPress hosting, domain name registration. That's a 2 week in a row mess up of domain name registration and other web related services, primarily for small business. Web and Beyond Live is my weekly show about topical and timely issues related to small business digital marketing and related issues. Whether you're watching live or in the replay or listening to the podcast, feel free to ask questions. Come over to the comment section and feel free to leave questions, and I'll be happy to do my best to answer them either on YouTube or Twitter or wherever you might be, Facebook Live. And yeah, you can always tweet at me at W3 Consulting on Twitter as well. The number 3 Consulting on Twitter, and I'm happy to answer questions there as well. This week, I wanted to cover just a couple of topics that I think are useful for everybody relating to some inside baseball topics relating to kind of the business of what's going on in the world. And then I want to cover a little bit of discussion on how people handle virtual assistants, some information on virtual assistants, some information on customer experience and setting up customer journey maps, kind of some of the operations stuff in the world of really building an effective business, operations and marketing wise. And then I just have a little bit of content related to Amazon and those of you who might be thinking about writing a book. And then I'm going to concentrate the end of our time today on the state of social listening. And there was a report put out by Meltwater and Social Media Today. And I want to just kind of discuss the state of social media listening based on the survey responses from those various businesses. So let's pull up my screen and get into it. If you have questions, like I said, feel free to ask those questions in the chat, and I'll do my best to answer them as we make our way through the episode today, the show today. So the first thing I wanted to talk about today was this article from payments.com, and that Blue Apron is launching a meal kit option on walmart.com. And I just think about all of the opportunities that small business owners have by virtue of working with other collaborators in your local communities. And so this was just a reminder to me to remind you all that, hey, talk to your local small business district based businesses and see how you can work together. Maybe there is a business who has a pretty good e-commerce installation. Perhaps you could piggyback on their success and offer your products or services built into what they're doing, and they may get a small commission, and you all win by virtue of catering better to your local community. And so I really believe in that kind of collaboration locally to be able to utilize e-commerce in a way that really makes a more kind of lush experience for the small businesses in your area. So just this is great. I mean, Walmart also actually has their own platform for small businesses to do last mile delivery. So you should definitely check that out. But I only bring this up for the mere fact that these big businesses and large funded startups like Blue Apron are going out there and they're competing for some of the same dollars you are. You can do a better job of this by utilizing local communities and connecting that way. Second up is the e-commerce chatbot maker Zowie raised $14 million, and then it was a reminder to me again to remind you all that connecting and making sure that your websites have the ability for your customers and target audiences to communicate with you in the best possible way, the easiest possible way for them, is really important and powerful. And so you may not have heard of Zoe before. I frequently recommend to most businesses that want to kind of step into the chat space on their website to implement something like ManyChat. ManyChat is a very easy tool to be able to create a seamless experience for people to have conversations with a little bit of artificial intelligence, a little bit of machine learning that is capable of taking in responses and giving back responses, even if you're not manning it live. And then if there is a requirement for you to respond to them live, you can have staff or yourself go ahead and do that through the application. But if you have e-commerce, Zowie is the kind of thing that will allow you to be able to do things like refunds or checking people out and facilitating through the search process in your e-commerce catalog, things of that nature. So definitely worth checking out if you have an e-commerce store and you're looking to kind of up the level of customer experience for folks. Next is the very big news that Meta's COO, Sheryl Sandberg, is stepping down after 14 years. Remarkably, she has been, because of many of Facebook's scandals over the years, been a little bit marred. Her reputation has been a little bit tarnished because of that, and I think she's deciding to step down from the role just because of the reorganization that Mark Zuckerberg did about a year ago. And as Meta came to become Meta Platforms Inc. and taking over kind of the umbrella of Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp and Oculus and otherwise, I think that she feels like her role is no longer really needed. And so she's going out there to do more nonprofit work and spend time with her family. And so good on her. And I look forward to seeing what she does post Meta. I mean, before she came to Facebook, she was well known in the arena, and she had written the book Lean In, and all of those kinds of things. So she was already someone who had a lot of experience, and so I'm sure that post Facebook/Meta, she will have other things to contribute to the world. Next up is YouTube is offering this new component to be able to both connect to YouTube on a television by utilizing your phone. I think this is actually really helpful. There are so many times when you want to engage with what's going on YouTube, but when you have it on the television, that makes it a little bit more difficult because there's not a keyboard, for you to be able to interact. YouTube is bridging that gap. And I see more and more, like for example, I'm with you live right now on YouTube TV. If you happen to have been sitting in your living room while I was live and you flip out your phone, you can now connect to YouTube and comment along in the conversation directly from your phone. So you're typing on your phone, and that chat is going, or that comment is going onto the chat on the YouTube live, or in a normal recorded YouTube experience. And I think that could be really interesting for folks who maybe don't want to watch video on their smaller devices, on their computer screens, laptop screens, or mobile phone screens, and they want to be able to still interact and engage. YouTube is bridging that gap, and I can see this in a lot of television-based items. YouTube has some original series types of materials, so I can see this being really useful, and I can actually see myself using it more and commenting more on YouTube videos by virtue of sitting down on the couch, watching them, and interacting and engaging, because now I can do it very seamlessly from my phone while I'm watching the television. So just something to keep in mind, that you can now engage your audience to be able to do that from the phone. Next is this video from Small Business Trends, where Andrew Cohen he came on and did a basically a webinar of sorts, a little video explaining all the things related to having a VA in your business, and really rethinking through the process of having a virtual assistant. He's the CEO of Work Better Now, and he walks through this concept. It's just a 15-minute video, and I think well worth watching. But he answers really the question of what small business owners should be doing today in order to be able to effectively utilize virtual assistants. And of course, he talks about some of the more basic things, being able to take incoming orders, customer service items, data entry, invoicing, and updating and doing some bookkeeping in QuickBooks, those kinds of things, and scheduling meetings and so on and so forth. But he also just helps contextualize where virtual assistants are today in the world, and the types of work that they may do beyond that, doing more and more social media and marketing and so on and so forth. So I think this is a really good kind of time to, while the summer kind of lull is here, to think through how might you use a virtual assistant, what things can be automated in the business. And I always think first optimization, then how do we automate things, and then of course how do we then delegate those items to others when we can't do it. So optimize to your best effect, automate to your best effect, and then delegate the rest to an effective virtual assistant, and that helps to kind of level up the operations. All right. Next, if this lets me do this, no, it's not letting me move to the next tab here. So I'm going to do this. All right, next up, I wanted to talk about this Entrepreneur in a Box customer journey map template. If you do not know what a customer journey map is, a CJM is your ability to storyboard how a customer comes to you and how they get to the end, which is purchasing a product and potentially service after the sale. And we want to make sure that the customer journey is something that that you over time iterate into something that you know pretty well, so that you can effectively both promote your business, but also clean up the operations of the business and get repeat referral and, in essence, the kind of virtuous cycle you have for any given good business, sustainable small business. And so that can't happen if you hand a customer a product and they go away, and either they go away unhappy or they go away and never come back to you again. And so I really believe that the customer journey map should not only detail the beginning ends of the process of both finding new customers, where do they find you, how do you engage them in the process of getting to know you and considering you for business, but then ultimately how you wrap around and make sure that they come back to you time and again for more and more stuff. So this is a great example of, yes, you can utilize a template like this and go with it, but remember that get to the end and think about what's the 360 degree. How do they come back around and utilize your services more and again in the future? Really quick note here that if you are thinking about writing a book for your business, right, as a thought leader or subject matter expert, or if you have written a book in the past, if you have any marketing related to Kindle purchasing, note that Kindle is doing a few unfortunate things. Old Kindles are going to not any longer have support for buying books. That's just a software security update. And but at the same time, you will see that the Kindle Android apps, I'm not quite sure about iOS, and I do need to check that, but I believe the Kindle mobile applications will no longer be able to purchase ebooks in and on the platform. I think this is a terrible move on Amazon's part, and so I think that both Apple and Google need to work with Kindle with Amazon to be able to make sure that we can purchase Kindle items on all devices. But unfortunately, they have now basically ceded that territory and are no longer allowing folks to purchase ebooks from the Kindle store on the Kindle apps. I'm not quite sure whether you can do it in the mobile browser. I think you still can. So definitely check that out. But this impacts us as small business owners and certainly as small business authors when we want to be able to encourage people to purchase our offerings on the Amazon platform. As much as Amazon, is maybe not the greatest in terms of their corporate practices, they are the largest online bookstore. And so, in order to be able to really survive in the world, people need to be able to access and purchase Kindle books. So I'm really disappointed here. One kind of silver lining here is that, like I said, you should still be able to encourage people to a mobile uh, browser and to go to Amazon there and purchase those Kindle items. I'm pretty sure that's still available. And one other additional thing is that if you have folks purchase directly through your own website, using e-commerce or otherwise, Kindle is now supporting the Send to Kindle EPUB. So you can actually get someone to say, hey, put in your Kindle email address or whatever email address, and you can actually email them EPUB files. And that is really the standard open file format. And now you can go ahead and forward those directly into their Kindle accounts by virtue of giving you the Kindle email address. And so to kind of explain this, stepping back, every Kindle device, including phones, mobile devices, and otherwise, have a Kindle email address associated with it. They also have a free Kindle email address associated with it. So if you log into your Amazon account and go into your Kindle settings, you can actually find this free email address. And that email address, when you email something to it, it then gets uploaded to the Kindle device of choice, or that it's coded to. And so you can actually go to your audience and say, hey, go into your account, find this email address, and if you put that in during the purchase process, we'll actually just email the file, the .epub, to your account, and Kindle will read it and automatically add it to your Kindle account in the back end. Now, again, if the person doesn't, you can always just email them the EPUB file, and then on their mobile device, they can just say share to Kindle, and it will upload it from the share to Kindle. This does require just a little bit more effort, but you're paying either 30% or 70% or some percentage to Amazon for those purchases. If you can circumvent them, then you're paying 2, 3, maybe 4% in terms of credit card processing fees and otherwise to whatever payment manager you're using. But then you're not paying that additional 30 or 70% to Amazon or otherwise. So for folks that you're bringing to your books, to your written material, and remember, you don't have to just do books. You can do magazines, you can do other types of of written material you can sell to others. Anything that you could print in a book, you could basically do in a digital format and sell it to folks. EPUB is a great way to do that, and you can do that on your own website and sell on your own website and use different tools. If you have questions or have a need to build something like that, let us know and we can certainly help out. But I just wanted to point this out because Amazon and Apple and Google are all in their various states of conflict, and it's important for us to be mindful of that. Okay, I wanted to close out just by having a little bit of a conversation around this state of social listening report that came out from the folks at Meltwater and Social Media Today, and they asked several really interesting questions in the report. And I just wanted to go through them and just read them to you so that you can get some understanding of what they're talking about and why they're talking about it. They said, according to survey responses to this particular survey they put out in 2022, almost 61% of businesses now have a social listening system in place and are monitoring for keyword mentions. What this means is that social listening is the idea that you're monitoring what's happening on social channels, social networks like YouTube and Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter and so on and so forth, and seeing if there is sentiment that's positive or negative about the business, identifying keywords to be able to respond from a customer service perspective. Potentially, there's a sales and marketing opportunity there as well. And so, all of these things are capable for your business within the social listening space. And so they said 61% of the businesses are and have some kind of social listening system in place. They said 82% now see this as a key piece of their planning process for being able to do social media marketing generally, which is a nice jump from it. I wanted to just pique your interest in terms of the types of things that businesses are doing in terms of social listening if you're not. One is brand awareness. What do people think about your brand? That's really important for you to be aware of. And of course, the brand sentiment analysis is a part of that. People becoming aware of your brand then feel things about your brand, and you want to be able to understand that as well. So, do people even know your brand exists? That's brand awareness. And then a second is how do people feel about your brand? And that's brand sentiment analysis. Of course, there's crisis management. Say your website goes down or something happens in the world and your entire city loses power. You want to be able to communicate to people about what's going on about the business. So crisis management is obviously something important. We then have competitive analysis, identifying what's going on with your competitors. Campaign analysis, we're doing some kind of promotional campaign. We're doing social, email, advertising. Otherwise, is it being effective for us in that way? Industry trends and just staying on top of what's going on in the industry, and of course, paying attention to what and how it's being and affecting the business are also the a really good part of how people utilize social listening. So if you're not doing some of these things, maybe you think about how you might do some of these things going forward in your own business. Okay, so I ask a couple other really good questions that I wanted to touch on, and one is, what factors basically restrict you from doing more of this? If you're not doing it, why aren't you doing it or maximizing your efforts here? And the typical responses I think come up: time and cost, employee bandwidth, not having adequate tools for being able to do this. They talk about platform data restrictions, basically Facebook or LinkedIn or otherwise stopping you from being able to get some of this information, and then of course system knowledge. And so at some point we'll probably do a social listening webinar for a Web and Beyond webinar, so we can kind of hopefully help with some of these pieces, because many times social listening is free. You don't need to pay anything for it. There are lots of really great tools. There are ways to get around platform data restrictions, and I can show you how to do some of those things. So I think that will be a good topic for me to capture to do a webinar on at some point in the future. And then, last but not least, I thought the interesting part here was also why people don't have a handle on social media. Right? They describe basically the various things. They don't know enough about it. They feel like they don't need or care about it, and that's a very small number of folks. They're interested, but they need more education. They're looking to implement it, but they're looking for people who can help them do that, and they're still searching for the right tools and so on and so forth. So I think we all can pretty much resonate with those responses generally when we're thinking about social listening. It's something that we know is important. We're really capable of understanding why it's important to us, but we just want to figure out what the resources are that are necessary for us to be able to make that happen. I'll also note that the top platforms on which people feel like they get the best data uh, is at the top Twitter. Twitter is the number one in terms of the way in which people feel like they get the best data out of their efforts. And I think it's just because it's that short, quick, easy manifestation of conversation. Tweets are 280 characters in length, and people can dash off messages pretty quickly within the system. Facebook and Instagram command the next two spots in the top three, and then it's LinkedIn and then YouTube kind of matching up with TikTok in terms of those things. So just something to keep in mind. Sorry, with Reddit. So it was YouTube, Reddit, and TikTok all kind of in equal measure there. But that's something for you to keep in mind. If you want to get the right data out of the system, then maybe concentrating on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn first to be able to get up to speed, and then looking at that data and using it as kind of a cascading decision making matrix for you to be able to say, okay, we're going to do these platforms first in terms of social listening, then we'll do these, and then we'll do these. So, kind of a good decision making process for you. This is a 20-page report, so it's definitely worth checking out and looking at further than what I'm doing here. I just wanted to touch on some of these basic questions that were discussed and dialogued about in there, and I thought it was a really really good report for just kind of seeing under the hood what we need to and should be doing relating to those various pieces. Okay, so just a couple of things before we close out. One is we have our upcoming webinar on July 7th. This one's going to be on the intro to Google Analytics 4. And so if you all are interested, go check that out. Go to w3cinc.com/events, and you'll see the information to be able to go ahead and register for our upcoming webinar on Google Analytics 4. This is the new version of Google Analytics, and so it helps you understand what is happening when people come to your website, where they're coming from, why they're coming there, and what you can do to help facilitate them closer to sales, customer service, all of those kinds of fun things. As well, in the following webinar, so I think that's July 7th, and then we have the next one, which will be about 2 weeks or 3 weeks later than that. We've got how to migrate from your existing Google Analytics to Google Analytics 4. So the original, not the original, but the prior version is called Universal Analytics or UA. UA is going to Google Analytics or GA4. And so they're going to imminently cut that off next year. And so we want to make sure we transition over from Google Analytics. The Universal Analytics over to GA4. And so we're going to do those two webinars back to back so everybody gets all the information they need and are on board to be able to make that transition over. If you're not in our community, Web and Beyond community, feel free to join us. And the events are posted there so you can register and join us from within there pretty easily and quickly. So we post everything inside of Web and Beyond community. And just by going to www.webandbeyond.community, so .community, just like .com, it's .community, and you'll be taken to the sign up page. You can register and join us for free in the community. And so with that, we've come to the end of our time together this week. If you enjoyed the live stream, feel free to click the thumbs up icon. That helps us make new small business friends. And so thank you for doing that. If you have a question, feel free to leave a comment on the various videos wherever you see them. You can also tweet or message us at W3 Consulting on Twitter and most of the other socials. You can join us here most times every Monday at 11 a.m. Eastern, although like this week we had scheduling conflict, so I came into you at noon as opposed to 11. So just pay attention to the date and time that's listed on the socials, but we try to get that communication out to you when we can. I would thank you so much for spending this Web and Beyond live with me. I'm Ray Sidney Smith on behalf of W3 Consulting and W3C Web Services. Have a great week ahead marketing your small business on the Web and Beyond.